Intramuros, Latin for within the walls, is the 0.67 square kilometers historic walled area within the modern city of Manila, the capital of the Philippines. Intramuros is also called the Walled City.
So we're currently here at the Palacio del Gobernador, also referred to as the Palace of the Governor. It is located across Plaza de Roma and built in its current form in 1976.
The Palacio del Gobernador was the state residence of the Governor-General of the Philippines, and the first palace, or the Palacio Real, was constructed in 1599 near Plaza de Armas, or the parade ground in Fort Santiago. It was destroyed by an earthquake in 1645. It was later moved to the present site and became the Governor-General's residence and office, as well as the Real Audiencia, or the Supreme Court. It was then reconstructed in 1733, and in 1747, it was damaged by an earthquake in 1771. In 1850, the Spanish-type facade was added to the building, then later destroyed in 1863 by an earthquake. It was abandoned by the Governor-General when he moved to Malacañang. The current building was constructed in 1976 to house the government offices.
Plaza de Roma was formerly called Plaza Mayor and was converted into a park in 1797. It was renamed Plaza McKinley in 1901 and once again renamed Plaza de Roma in 1961. The fountain was built in 1886 and the statue of Carlos IV of Spain was replaced by the Gomburza Monument. The statue was returned in 1981. The fountain was built in 1886 and the statue of Carlos IV of Spain was replaced by the Gomburza Monument, and the statue was returned in 1981. The first urban plan for Intramuros was laid out by the first Governor-General of the Philippines, Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, without the help of an architect or city designer. The city of Intramuros was built in a great pattern line, following King Philip II's prescriptions for the foundation of Hispanic colonial towns, a compilation of existing royal ordinances, and instructions based on urban planning theories dating back to the Renaissance. According to these prescriptions, the main plaza was to be the starting point of the town around which everything was to be built. There are 5 plazas or open spaces within Intramuros, but Plaza de Roma, once called Plaza Mayor, was considered to be the principal plaza and the center of the city because it was surrounded by the Ayuntamiento, Palacio del Gobernador, Fort Santiago, and Manila Cathedral, which represents the political, military, and religious views. It was prescribed that the plaza be either square or rectangular in plan. If it was rectangular, the leg should be 1.5 times width, as it was the best size for fiestas in which horses are used and for any other fiestas that should be held. During gala days and nights of the fiestas, musicians gathered at the plaza and people could listen without getting out of their carriages. It is also believed that the bullfights were also held in here before its conversion into a garden.
The Ayuntamiento de Manila is also known as Casas Consistoriales, as well as nicknamed the Marble Palace. The Ayuntamiento is the seat of the Manila City Council, consisted of 2 alcaldes, 8 oidores, a clerk, and a chief constable.
The Ayuntamiento de Manila is a building located at the corner of Andres Soriano Avenue, formerly Calle Aduana and Cabildo Street, fronting the Plaza de Roma in Intramuros, Manila, Philippines. It was destroyed in World War II and was reconstructed thereafter. The building now houses the office of the Bureau of the Treasury. Construction of the Ayuntamiento began in 1599 and the original building opened in 1607. After an earthquake damaged it severely, it was ordered to be demolished. The Ayuntamiento was rebuilt in 1738 in the Baroque style with ornate wrought iron balconies, covered arcades, and a central clock tower. This form survived well into the 19th century until it was destroyed again during the earthquake of 1863. From 1879 to 1884, a new building was constructed by Eduardo Lopez Navarro, a military engineer, and according to the designs of architect Felipe Rojas. During the transition from the Spanish to the American rule, after the Spanish-American War, General Wesley Merritt and Governor General Fermin Jodenes signed the terms of capitulation of Manila in the Ayuntamiento. Until 1903, the Ayuntamiento was used as the office of the American military governor. Later on, the building was used by the First Philippine Assembly, then by the Philippine Legislature in 1924, when it moved to the Legislative Building along Padre Burgos Street in Ermita. It was also used subsequently by the Bureau of Justice and the Supreme Court. The Ayuntamiento was destroyed in 1945 during the Battle of Manila, with only the outer walls of the first floor remaining and the lot repurposed as a parking lot.
Casa Manila is a museum in Intramuros depicting colonial lifestyle during Spanish colonization of the Philippines. It was a copy of an 1850s San Nicolas house and was once located at Calle Habaneros. The architect of Casa Manila was J. Ramon L. Fosman and was constructed by Imelda Marcos during 1980s and modeled on Spanish colonial architecture.
The museum is the imposing stone and wood structure in 1850, one of the grand houses in Barrio San Luis and one of the 4 original villages of Intramuros. Casa Manila is located across historic San Agustin Church and bounded by Calle Real, General Luna, Cabildo, and Urdaneta Street. The other 2 are the Los Hidalgos in 1650 and Cayugan Mansion in 1890.
San Agustin Church is a Roman Catholic church under the auspices of the Order of St. Augustine. In 1973, it was named a National Historical Landmark by the Philippine government. In 1993, it was one of the 4 Philippine churches constructed under the Spanish colonial period to be designated as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, under the collective title Baroque Churches of the Philippines.
The history of San Agustin dates back to 1570, a year in which Legazpi founded Manila, and the Augustinian fathers built the first temporary church with thatch and bamboo on the land donated to them by Legazpi himself. In 1586, the Augustinians, triggered by the new technique of stone cutting and lime and sand mixing, imported by Jesuit Antonio Sedeno, approved a resolution to construct a new church entirely of hewn stone. The church construction started in 1587. Antonio de Morga and the private meeting of the Augustinians revealed that in 1604, the church was already completed. Historically then, the San Agustin Church is the oldest stone church in the country, despite claims by other churches for this distinction.
The Minor Basilica and Metropolitan Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, or informally known as the Manila Cathedral, is founded in 1571 by Padre Juan de Vivero. It was dedicated to the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary. The Minor Basilica of the Immaculate Conception, Manila Metropolitan Cathedral, is the first cathedral in the country. When the Philippines was separated from the Archdiocese of Mexico and became anew in 1581, Manila was chosen as the episcopal seat, and the Church of Manila, dedicated to La Purísima e Immaculada Concepcion, established by the secular priest Juan de Vivero in 1571, was chosen to become the cathedral. Hence, the Manila Cathedral is aptly honored as the Mother Church of the Philippines. It was motu proprio from Pope John Paul II himself, now a canonized saint, that this cathedral was raised into the dignity of a basilica on April 27, 1981, 2 months after his first visit to the Philippines in February 1981. Upon the issuance of the papal bull Illi Vulti Presido by Pope Gregory XIII, the cathedral was damaged and destroyed several times since the original structure was built in 1581, while the eighth and current structure of the cathedral was completed in 1958. The basilica has merited a papal endorsement from Pope Gregory XIII and 3 apostolic visits from Pope Paul VI, Pope John Paul II, and Pope Francis. On April 27, 1981, Pope John Paul II issued papal bull Quod Ipsum, designating the cathedral as a minor basilica by his own motu proprio. The northwest facade is a replica of the facade of the previous cathedral, along with statues of famous saints sculpted in Roman travertine stone. Several of the artworks inside the basilica were made by Italian artists. In the previous cathedral, they were originally made of Malave wood. The statue of Saint Rose of Lima was sculpted by Angela Facinanzi, while Saint Jacob, Saint Andrew, and Saint Anthony de Abbot were made by sculptress Livia Papini. The statues of Saint Francis Xavier and Saint Polycarp were done by Alcide Tico. The tympanum above the central northwest doors bears the Latin inscription Tibi corde to immaculato concredimus nocach consecramus, which translates to thy immaculate heart, entrust us and consecrate us. The artistic designs of the stained glass windows of Manila Cathedral are mostly products of the creative genius of Ocampo, one of the most versatile contemporary Filipino artists during his time and a recipient of the 1964 Patnubay ng Sining at Kalinangan Award from the city government of Manila. Since Pope John Paul II's apostolic visit to the Basilica in 1981, a medallion bearing the papal arms has been placed beneath the cross on the northwest end. The red galero hat of Cardinal Rufino Santos is also suspended from the ceiling of the dome. In addition, a copy of St. Peter's statue attributed to Arnolfo di Cambio is enshrined inside, across a polychrome life-size statue of the Immaculate Conception.
Gano'n na po kayo katagal dito sa Intramuros?
Ako, nag-umpisa ako ng 2009.
Wala pa ng 1975.
2009? Ano yung mga
Ilang taon na? 18 lang yun.
Opo.
9 years po. Bali po, ano po yung mga napansin nyo na nagbago po dito?
Malaking pinagbago na yan. Dati, karamihan dito. Wala dito. Pinsiyan dati.
Marami.
Kagaya po na...
Sinabutan ko yan. Queens pa lang. Ngayon, replica siya.
Opo.
Kaya halos lahat ang pinatayo dito. Bawal ka magtayo na bagong
Bago.
Ang puro palace structure lang.
Ayun ang Pugtansya ko. Wow Pugtan sa Wow Pugtan. Marami na bago dito sa Ramon.
Sumipat as dito.
Ano po masasabi niyo dito?
Sa experience mo.
Sa Intramuros. Kasi dito nag-ano yung mga tatakbo ng halimbawa, presidente, vice president, di ba? Dito sila nag-ano dito sa at the same time, yun, dito nagtipon-tipon yung mga tao dito. po nila na magiging pangulo o pangalawang pangulo. Ganon. At same time, yung mga liyoso, diretso sila takbo dyan sa loob.
The Spanish conquistador Miguel Lopez de Legazpi laid the foundations of the new capital on the former site of Maynilad, a palisaded riverside settlement ruled by a native chieftain. To protect the inhabitants from attack, in the late 1500s, construction began on a series of stone walls and fortifications that would eventually enclose a pentagonal area approximately 0.67 square kilometers in size, within which lay a tight grid-like system of streets and the main square surrounded by government structures. The defensive curtain was more or less completed by the 1700s, although improvements and other construction work continued well into the next century. Intramuros remained a Spanish city until 1898, when the U.S. took control of the Philippines at the end of the Spanish-American War. Many of the city's ancient gates and most of the walls have since been restored. On the other hand, there has been almost no progress in the reconstruction of key landmarks, such as major churches and old government buildings, due in part to a serious lack of funds and the existence of new structures.
Rizal Shrine is a modern museum dedicated to the life works of Dr. Jose Rizal, and it is located here inside Fort Santiago, Intramuros, Manila. This is a fortified complex which houses the building where Dr. Jose Rizal spent his last days and where his family found his famous poem, Mi Ultimo Adios, also known as My Last Farewell.
The Rizal Shrine Museum was designed by architect Ramon Cosman. The museum was built in 1953 and was modernized in 2013. In the Rizal Shrine, memorabilia such as Rizal's books, medical instruments, coat, hat, even business cards, and many more are displayed. The fort features the embedded bronze footsteps on the ground, representing the final walk from his cell to the location of the actual execution. The most interesting point inside Rizal Shrine is the room where our hero was imprisoned, and it was the actual detention cell where he was held captive and wrote his letter to his family and closest friend Ferdinand Blumentritt before he was shot to death on December 30, 1896 at Bagong Bayan, now known as Loteta or Rizal Park. And it is one of the most important dates in the Philippine history.
Bahay Chinong, or the Filipino-Chinese House, is a building located in Intramuros, Manila, which houses the Kaisa Andero King Heritage Center, a museum that documents the lives, history, and contributions of the ethnic Chinese to the Philippines' lives. The museum was designed by Eva Penamora in collaboration with the late architect Honrado Fernandez in 1996 and completed and inaugurated in 1999. Kaisa para sa Kaunlaran Incorporation, a non-profit organization co-founded by Teresita Angsi, envisioned the project to provide another venue for advocating patriotism to the Philippines and promoting cultural identity and understanding between the local Chinese and Filipino communities after the acclaimed bilingual children's educational television program Pinpin in the early 1990s. Funding for the land and building structure was advanced by Angelo King Foundation and eventually raised through generous contributions from different levels of Filipino-Chinese community, from taipans to average wage earners.
The central figure is a woman, quite large, dominant in size and proportion. She is the motherland. She weeps as she holds an infant, the symbol of hope. But the infant is dead. It represents lost hope. The female figure on the right side is a victim of rape. There is an infant clinging to her. On the left side is a man, still alive, looking confused and disoriented, despair on his face. The young boys are dead, representing the youth the country lost. The dead man lying in front portrays the elderly who were caught in the battle. This memorial is dedicated to all those innocent victims of war, many of whom went nameless and unknown to a common grave, or never even knew a grave at all, their bodies having been consumed by fire or crushed to dust beneath the rubble of ruins. Let this monument be the gravestone for each and every one of the over 100,000 men, women, children and infants killed in Manila during its Battle of Liberation, February 3 to March 3, 1945. We have not forgotten them, nor shall we ever forget. May they rest in peace as part now of the sacred ground of this city, the Manila of our affections.
Ucal Villamil gathers scavenged objects as a form of testimony to the tragedies of our time. He spends years salvaging and collecting discards and scraps from dump sites and junkyards in the Philippines and assembles them into large-scale installations that reflect on the various crises that afflict the country. In this work, he uses abandoned dolls from the Payatas dump site, placed inside handmade cages made out of pilfered wires, to comment on the horrors of war, dispossession, and the loss of innocence.
Fort Santiago or Fuerte de Santiago is a citadel first built by Spanish conquistador Miguel Lopez de Legazpi for the new established city of Manila. The defense fortress is part of the structure of the walled city referred to as Intramuros. The fort is one of the most important historical sites in Manila. Several lives were lost in its prison during the Spanish colonial period and World War II. Jose Rizal, one of the Philippine national heroes, was imprisoned here before his execution in 1896.
Fort Santiago was named after St. James. Santiago, in Spanish, the patron saint of Spain. It is located at the mouth of the Pasig River and served as the premier defense fortress of the Spanish government during the rule of the country. It became a main fort for the spice trade to the Americas and Europe for 333 years. The Manila galleon trade to Acapulco, Mexico began from the Fuerte de Santiago.
The fort has a perimeter of 2,030 feet, 620 meters, and it is of a nearly triangular form. The south front, which looks towards the city, is a curtained with a terraplane, flanked by two demi-bastions. The bastion of San Fernando on the riverside, and the bastion of San Miguel by the bayside. A moat connected with the river separates the fort from the city. Near the beginning of the north face, instead of a bastion, a cavalier called Santa Barbara was built with 3 phases of batteries. One looking seaward over the anchorage place, one facing the entrance, and the third looking upon the river. The latter is united with a tower of the same height as the walls, through which there is a descent to the water battery placed upon a semicircular platform, thus completing the triangular form of the fort. The 22-foot 6.7 high walls, with a thickness of 8 feet 2.4 meter, are pierced for the necessary communications. The front gateway facade measures 40 feet 12 meter high, being in the south wall and facing the city. The communication with the river and the sea was by an obscure postern gate. The Postigo de la Nuestra Señora del Soledad, postern of Our Lady of Solitude. Inside the fort were guard stations, together with the barracks of the troop of the garrison and the quarters of the warden and his subalterns. Also inside the fort were various storehouses, a chapel, the powder magazine, the sentry towers, and the cisterns.
The Minor Basilica in Metropolitan of the Immaculate Conception. The Minor Basilica in the Metropolitan The Minor Basilica in Metropolitan Manila was dedicated to the Blessed Virgin Mary of the Immaculate Conception. Baliktad. Of the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin.
Currently here at the Palacio del Gobernador, also referred to as the Palace of the Governor. It is located across Plaza de Roma and built in its third form in 1976.
The Minor Basilica and the
San Agustin Church is a Roman Catholic church under the auspices of the Order of St. Augustine. Wait lang. San Agustin Church is a Roman Catholic church under the auspices of the Order of St. Augustine. In 1976, it was named a Philippine Historical Landmark by the Philippine government. In 1993, it was named
It is located here inside Fort Santiago in Intramuros, Manila. This is a 45 Dr. Cesar, and it is located here inside Fort Santiago in Intramuros, Manila.
May bloopers na tayo, Kian! Ay. The fort is one of the most important historical sites in Manila. Several lives were lost in its prison during Fort Santiago or Puente de Santiago is a citadel first built by Spanish conquistador. Fort Santiago or Puente de Santiago is a citadel first built.
Hindi ko kaya.
Tatanong mo? Ay, ikaw na kasi ang tanong.
Kian, sige na. Kaya mo yan. Sabi mo lang in love. Excuse me, can you speak in English?
The Bahay Chino, the Filipino-Chinese house, is
Game. Wait lang. Isang basa lang. Baluarte. Isang... Bastion. Attention, Shami. Oh. Hindi na nag-speak na. No?
They ask you how you are.
Thank you.
To say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never.
Game.
Ang galing ko, di ba? So we're currently here at the Palacio del Gobernador, also referred to as the Palace of the Governor. It is located across Plaza de Roma and built in its current form in 1976. Ay!
Kinabahan ako.
Na-flabbergas ka ba?
You were flabbergasted.
Ay, yung kambal nito.
Ay! Yun naman po siya. Ang pangit ng tawa ko.